let me introduce myself a little bit. I am an IFS therapist. I completed levels 1 and 2, as well as I've done a lot of group supervision, and I'm actually just a few supervision sessions short of applying for my certification. I am also the author of a book of writing exercises that, even though I hadn't been trained in IFS when I wrote it, is really about accessing self-energy. So what we're going to do next is to give you some tools that you can use both with your clients and with yourself to get better acquainted with that addicted part and maybe discover how it's trying to help you, right? As many IFS therapists discover, the best way to really help heal people's parts is to become aware of your own. And writing and art are really great tools because they actually call on our creativity, which is a quality of self, right? And that helps evoke other qualities of self, like connection and courage and playfulness. And actually, I just want to comment on that because I know Dick this morning emphasized the 8 C's of self, and they're worth repeating, which is compassion, curiosity, connection, calm, creativity, courage, clarity. Gosh, I think I'm probably missing one of them, and compassion. And there are also 5 P's that he added later, which are playfulness, persistence, patience, presence, and perspective. And in response to some questions I saw in the Q&A about people struggling to access parts, I know as a therapist, I have encountered that with my own clients and also with myself in my own IFS therapy. I think that writing and art can be great tools for helping those clients access those parts because they really hold up a mirror to our internal world, one that we don't always have access to. So what I'm going to do today is to invite you to pick an addictive or compulsive part that isn't too triggering, perhaps something that's been activated a lot during COVID, like a part that's addicted to checking their phone, making banana bread, purchasing things they don't need, staying up till 4 a.m., binge watching Game of Thrones. It can also be a part that has a substance or sexual addiction or compulsion. If for some reason you are one of those people that cannot find an addictive or compulsive part, then just try this exercise with another part that you're struggling with. Okay, maybe a part that you're not always so friendly with. As this is really an opportunity to help you understand why your parts are doing what they're doing so that you can begin to develop both compassion and appreciation from them. Okay, so what I'm going to be asking you to do is to pick a part, and then I'm going to be asking you to write a dialogue between the self and the addictive part. The self being that inner presence, that inner peaceful place, and the part, right? And it's going to look a little bit like a play, like you're going to write self, colon, and then addicted part, colon. And for any of you who have anxious writing parts, I just want to say that I'm not asking you to write a Tony or Pulitzer winning play. The point of this exercise is really not about writing well. It's about using this as a tool for self-discovery. And also, just so you know, that I am not going to be asking anyone to share their writing unless they want to. And you will have an opportunity, there will be some, after we finish the writing exercise, you will have an opportunity to share your writing process with your table. And whether you want to share your writing exercise that you wrote is up to you. And I would just say, because we maybe have limited time, just to pick like a snippet of it. But again, I'm not asking anyone to share their writing. This is really just about you having your own experience with your parts. And then I will be later asking you just to share the process of what that was like. So again, this is just about deepening your understanding of your addicted part. Okay, so I want to give you, in case you're wondering, like, what is this dialogue going to look like? I am going to give you an example by reading you one that I did. Okay, so the self says, tell me about your job. Why do you do what you do? The sugar addict says, when you're feeling down or blah, I give you something that makes you feel better, an instant high. You don't have to work for me like every other good thing. I'm just right there in your kitchen. The sugar addict says, I've been around since mornings with Captain Crunch. Yes, there was life in total on the table, but we both know what you always chose. The self says, yeah, I remember that. I felt down a lot as a kid. Thankfully, I could count on you to give me something to look forward to. Sugar addict says, yeah, I was the perfect fairy godmother. Self says, you certainly were, but I'm an adult now, so why do you continue to do what you do? The sugar addict says, well, I see how trapped you feel and deprived of so many sources of instant pleasure you could turn to only a year ago. COVID-19 hasn't stopped me. You can still order Ben & Jerry's on Fresh Direct. Now the shaming part steps in. The critic. Look at how much weight you've gained listening to this guy. If you had more willpower, you would look better. But instead, you're constantly making excuses and exceptions. Self says to the shaming part, I hear what you're saying, but if you keep jumping in, I won't be able to understand why my sugar addict is doing what it's doing. Plus, I'm trying to do a demo exercise, and focusing on too many parts will make it confusing for participants. Would you mind stepping back, and I'll check in with you at my next therapy session with Christina? The shaming part steps back. The self part says, thank you, to the shaming part, and turns back to the sugar addict. What is it that you're not wanting me to feel, and why are you so concerned about that? The sugar addict said, well, let's just say I'm attuned to a sense of deprivation and loneliness that feels overwhelming for you. Self says, if you knew I could heal that part of me carrying the burden of feeling deprived and lonely, would you be willing to relax? Sugar addict says, yes, I would, as long as I knew that you could find a sense of sweetness and fullness from your heart, sending compassion to the places that need it. And the self said, good, we're on the same page. Let's bookmark this for our next therapy session so we can begin to heal that deprived, lonely part. Thanks for the convo. Okay. And I'm going to just invite Melissa to, who I think has a copy of the dialogue, to just stick it in the chat box in case people are visual like I am and like to read things. So for those of you who are familiar with IFS, you may have noticed some classic IFS questions woven into the dialogue. That is totally intentional, because the IFS model is about directed inquiry. Instead of being, it's sort of like, instead of this being what I'm asking you to do, being more of a free-flowing conversation, I'm going to be asking you to weave some classic IFS questions from the self to the part into the dialogue. And I am going now, give me 2 seconds while I figure out the technical stuff, to share my screen so that you can see these questions. Voila. Okay, here they are. So here are some questions from the self to the addicted part, and I'm just going to go over them. I'm going to give you questions that I really encourage because they are classic IFS questions, and they will help you along the path of developing more self-energy towards your addictive part. Okay. First of all, I want to say we're all going to start with the same question. Tell me about your job. We're going to, the same question from the self to the addicted part. Tell me about your job. Why do you do what you do? Some other IFS questions. How did you get your job? You may recognize some of these from the demo this morning with Dick and Kathleen. And then, what are you concerned would happen if you couldn't do what you do? What are you afraid that I might feel? Why are you so concerned about me feeling that feeling? Again, alternately, why don't you want me to feel that feeling? How old do you see me as? If you knew, and finally, if you knew that I could heal the part of me carrying the burden of feeling unlovable, invisible, shameful, how would you feel about that? And how might you act differently? All right, so you can weave these questions into the dialogue and you can let it, I'm kind of asking you to use some questions and then let it flow and then use more questions. Just feel into what your self energy wants you to do. Okay. Some optional questions, and I'll just explain these because I know there's some people that are really new to IFS. Since you got your job when I was 3, 7, 9, why do you continue to do what you do? Do you know that I'm actually 51? Okay. What are you not wanting for me? And again, some parts I've noticed that I have parts that are very sensitive to language. So I'm just giving you can feel free to, if the wording isn't working for you, just feel free to paraphrase. What are you attuned to in me that activates you? And this, I just want to clarify that our parts in some ways become the parent. When we get exiled, it's because whoever our caregivers aren't necessarily attuning to us in the way that we need, right? And so our parts are sometimes very attuned to us in ways that other people aren't, right? And they know, your addicted part has a sense of your inner deprivation. It knows that part. It's seen it get activated, right? So what are you attuned to in me that activates you? And then finally, what gifts help you do your job? And if you didn't have to work so hard to protect me, how else might you use them? Now, people might not think that their addicted part has gifts, but let me tell you something. Your addicted part is attuned to you, and it has some gifts in figuring out how you can get pleasure. For example, I have my parts that like to turn to sugar, know that you've had a really stressful morning, and wouldn't a chocolate bar just be so nice, right? They know how to get me pleasure. And there's nothing wrong with having a part that can help me find something to make myself relax. But the problem with parts, and as Dick said this morning, is that they get extreme, right? We just don't want them. And once they're unburdened, the exile that they're protecting, they can relax and do their jobs better. But we want them to be able to tell you what they need rather than us to impose it on them. So I am going to stop sharing this site for a second so that I can read my notes and guide us through a meditation that will get us into the writing exercises. But I will put it back on the screen so that you guys can see this while you're doing the writing exercise. So I'm back now. Hold on a second. A couple of caveats. If other parts jump in, like my shaming part did, right? You can just acknowledge their concern and just gently ask them to step back, letting them know that you'll attend to them later if they still need attention, right? You never want to just be all dismissive of a part, especially if it has something important that it wants you to know. So if it's really important, it'll let it know that you'll be willing to listen to it another time. What we really want to do here is try and focus as much as possible to understanding the specific part that we want to get to know better. Also, the purpose of this writing exercise is not to heal the exile, but to see if you can soften and deepen your understanding of the addicted part so that you can appreciate its purpose and help it cooperate with the healing process, right? You also might want to be mindful of any intense caretaking parts that just want to get in there and heal that exile, right? I'm sure no one has any idea what I'm talking about. But if you have parts that are I want to do this writing exercise and I'm going to be fully healed by the time I'm done, I would ask you to ask those parts just to give you some room, because this is not what we're really trying to do here, right? This is really it's a step-by-step process, and we want to try to bring as much self-energy to the writing as we can. Okay, so I'm going to check now. Going to toggle back and check to see if there are any. I'm going to be leading you into a meditation that will help you get in touch with your addicted part. And then I'm going to give you 20 minutes to do the writing. And what I'd like to do first is toggle back to here, Remo, and see if there are any questions about the instructions before we begin. And I'm looking, let's see, I'm going to check the chat. Does anybody have any questions about the instructions before we get started? Okay, 20 minutes, insane. I know it's not enough time. But I tell you what, this is the good thing about this is just the beginning. If you start a dialogue that you want to continue and you feel like there isn't enough time, you can actually do this at home and you don't even have to leave. You don't have to go anywhere. At 5:30, you can turn your computer off and you can continue your writing exercises. So, and I understand, I'm sorry, there just wasn't enough time. Secondly, you will also have a time to flesh them out through the art with Julia and Jessica this afternoon, which is kind of exciting. Let's see. Yes, you will have a copy. I'm going to put them back on screen. I promise, just as soon as the meditation is over. So never fear. You will have those instructions. Yes. Need to be able. Yes, you will see those questions. I promise you. And she actually, I see that Ashley has posted them in chat, but I'm going to actually just turn off my screen so you can see the questions when after the meditation. So, and I'm going to just say that feel free if you're like, I'm going to ask those parts that may feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do the dialogue. If they are just so activated and it's getting in the way, you can just answer the questions. That's really okay. So just ask your parts to give you permission to do the exercise, whatever way feels just best for your particular system, okay? Okie dokie. Now, I am going to invite everyone to close their eyes and just get into a comfortable position. Oops. Okay. So just take a couple of deep centering breaths, becoming aware of the gentle ebb and flow of your inhales and exhales as your body slowly surrenders into a peaceful state of relaxation. Take a moment and just sense what it's like to be in your body. Become aware of any thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are present, and just gently acknowledge them before returning your attention back to your breath. Now, slowly, begin to sense into that something inside you that has some addictive or compulsive energy. See if you can just sense into that something inside you that has some addictive or compulsive energy. See if you can just get a felt sense of that part. Maybe rewinding to a memory when you experience it acting in an addictive or compulsive manner. Or maybe it's already active and you're feeling it now. Either way, when you find it, just gently say hello to the part, letting it know that you see that it's there. Notice how, where, and in what form it occupies space in your body. Maybe gently placing your hand in the spot where you feel it the most. I find that that's very comforting. As you gently focus your attention, keeping it company, Sense how it wants to present itself to you in this moment so that you can connect to it. Perhaps as a bodily sensation, or maybe as an image. Notice if it has a shape, a texture, a weight, a temperature, or perhaps a personality. As you gently focus your attention on it, notice how it's responding. What's it like when it has your complete, undivided attention? Now, checking in with your heart, notice how you're feeling towards it. Just notice how you're feeling towards that part. From that heart space, see if you can create some space between yourself and the addicted, compulsive part. Just create some room, almost as if you're holding the part. And as you create that space, notice if any other parts get activated, parts that don't like the addicted part or just don't want to go there. Maybe parts that are distracting you with other thoughts and concerns, and just say hello to them all and gently ask them if they would be willing to step back for now so that you can be with the addicted part in a peaceful way. Now, once again, turn your attention back to your addicted part and notice how you're feeling toward it now. See if you can find a peaceful sense of friendly curiosity within yourself about it, and invite the part into a dialogue. Take a few more deep breaths and slowly open your eyes, preparing to write. So here are some tools that you can use with your clients and with yourself. And of course, to do the really deep IFS work, you really need to work, I think, with an IFS therapist. And I think that, and you know, when I was getting trained in IFS, I said, like someone said to me, the best way to really do this work and heal and is to do it yourself as a client. And I found that like instrumentally helpful. And I will say, just in terms of the IFS community, you know, some of the therapists who are IFS trained are some of like the most self-led, menschiest people you'll ever want to meet. It's been such a joy to be part of the IFS community. Finally, I just wanted to say really quickly, Mary, our executive director is going to come on in a moment and just tell you a little bit about CECs and some upcoming programs. But before that, I saw a question that kept coming up and it wasn't answered. And I just wanted to just jump in and say there was something, I heard someone say, what if an addicted part needs something that the self can't give it? And that really resonated for me because I know in my IFS, when I had times that I could not like give my exile compassion. And you know, I notice what generally is happening there is that there's another manager or firefighter that's getting in the way. And so you really just need, if like our exiles need to feel, the whole idea is our exiles need to feel safe enough to share what they're holding. And if they sense, they're kind of shy and timid, if they sense that there are manager parts that are going to criticize it, right? They're not going to feel safe enough to share themselves. So if you're having trouble giving self energy to your part, it means that there's another part, another manager that needs to be addressed. And as you continue to do this work, you'll become more and more aware of all of your parts that are, and you'll get a sense of your system. And I saw that from Kimball, one of my colleagues, that he just really quickly, that just, he asked if parts can talk to each other. And I'm going to say, of course, you know, these are like, this is an internal family system. And just like in a family, there are parts that are polarized. There are parts that are also aligned and work together, like your inner addict. And it's like manipulative part that goes and figures out a way to get the substance. So anyway, my time is up, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody.